Machine last night on the offensive end. 36 points in 25 minutes. Pretty efficient. And the Sixers beat the Mavs. And it keeps them in first place in the East. After the game, Embiid comparing his style to another superstar. Listen to this.
I've never seen my son just being a post player. I've always seen my son just being, like, Kevin Durant, just moving all over the place, shooting off the dribble, handling the ball, crossover, posting up. So
this is a full screen with lots of numbers on it, and it's showing you how dominant Embiid has been since returning from that bone bruise to his knee. Trust me on it. Hey, Broussard, has Embiid reemerged as the MVP favorite now?
No, he's out of it.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Brandon, he's out of it. Now, he's playing terrific basketball. There's no doubt about it. He's averaging 29 points and 11 rebounds for the season. But you know what? When I look at NBA.com, when I look at ESPN.com for the league leaders, Joel is nowhere to be found. He hasn't played enough games even to qualify.
That's right.
How can you qualify for MVP when you can't even qualify for the stat leaders? He's played 36 of 54 games. It's NBA.com and ESPN.com. Anywhere you look, you won't find Joel Embiid. He's not even listed as the leading scorer on the Sixers.
You got to give it to somebody.
I'm sorry. Well,
you have to give it to somebody, Chris.
It really, everybody's falling apart. But Nikola Jokic, here's the thing. Denver's a 4th seed. Now we know they may be without Jamal Murray. If they go on a swoon and they fall, start losing games and Jokic can't stop the bleeding, then Embiid won't be in. But I think you really got to look at a Chris Paul. I think maybe a Damian Lillard. I think... James Harden, if he gets back soon,
you just talked about you got to play a certain amount of games. Okay, but also the precedent in the NBA is that the MVP comes from a top 2 seed. Outside of Westbrook in 2016, that's the precedent. You talked about the precedent a couple of weeks ago. So what is it?
Right.
It got to go to somebody. You and Nick also sat up here and said this year is going to be an awkward year. Well, then it's going to go to James Harden because you got Denver. They're at the 4th seed right now. Well, they're sitting in the 4th seed. They'll probably continue to trend in the wrong direction. You got James Harden out there who's playing lights out. I believe he'll be back in a couple of days. Nick thinks it could be longer, but if he comes back within 10 days, he still sits at the top of that discussion. But Embiid, to answer your question, why has he reemerged is because of everything we just talked about, and then also this dude is 7 feet tall. And what he's doing, he's playing like Olajuwon. Same thing I said a month ago. He's playing like Shaquille O'Neal when he gets close to the rim. He's playing like KD, which he mentioned, that's who I've always envisioned myself playing like. And now you can even say James Harden, how quickly he gets to the line. And now, did you watch him last night? He's at the free throw line, he shoots it, and then he just throws his hands up like the goal is good. This dude, like I said, is the best player on the planet right now. LeBron James is the king, but we're talking about domination. You got to go with Embiid.
I think Embiid is alive for MVP despite missing the time because it is such an odd year. So the 3 best players, or the 3 players who have played the best on the 3 best teams, all either have missed massive time due to injury, are currently injured, or one of them, also, by the way, didn't even start on the team he's currently on, in LeBron, Embiid, and Harden. So for all 3 of those guys, it would be precedent-breaking for them to win MVP. The Nuggets are going to end up probably the 6th seed. That would be precedent-breaking. There are 2 guys who it wouldn't break the precedent, and nobody wants to talk about either one of them. Giannis, because he won the last 2, and it's like, wait, they won the last 2, he wasn't good enough in the playoffs, and the team is worse this year, and his numbers are down from last year. Why would he win a 3rd? And the other one is one that, he's dinged. He hasn't missed anything close to significant time.
5 games, and there's no timetable for his return.
Okay, Brandon, we can revisit this. I do not think Giannis has anything close to the type of lingering injury we're going to see from Harden, and clearly not the injury that knocked Embiid out, or LeBron's going to end up missing 6 weeks. The other one is one that when I did my initial MVP ladder and had Chris Paul third, folks like, what are you talking about? Chris Paul has a legitimate shot at this, because the Suns are going to finish potentially as the 1 seed. Now, his counting numbers would be the worst of any modern MVP by a mile. But if we're talking about Chris Paul winning MVP, averaging 15 points and 8 assists, then Embiid has to be eligible, playing 55 or 50 of 72 games. And so, Wilds, I do think that Embiid, especially if the Sixers end up as the 1 seed, has a legitimate chance at this. LeBron is going to miss too much time. Harden, will see how much time he misses, and we know some voters are going to hold Houston against him. Jokic, if the Nuggets fall because of Murray, and by the way, Jokic is not playing his best basketball right now. This month has been his worst month. Who's left? Who's left? And so I think Embiid is on the very short list, and I think Chris Paul could get to the top of that list at some point.
I would love Chris Paul to win it. I feels like it'd have to be sort of a legacy award, though, Chris, which it feels like you weren't into casting your vote that way. So Embiid has got Brooklyn tonight. Chris, it feels like if he has a monster game, not that this is sort of a coming out party, but this is a big game against the Nets, who are, Andre Drummond feasted on them. If he has a monster game, I'm not even talking about like a good game, a monster 40 plus, really like an all-time, I think he could win the MVP tonight. Really put everybody on notice. I am here. It has to be a monster game. And maybe I'm overdoing it, but I think tonight's game he could really make a case.
Well, certainly if he goes out and plays well and they beat Brooklyn and he dominates, it's huge. But what is the cliche, but it's true? The best ability is availability. He just hasn't been there. I give you that he's playing the best in the league. That's fine. He hasn't been there. Jokic and Chris Paul, Steve Nash's numbers, he won it with 15 and 11 one year. The Suns have gone from 10th last year to 2nd in the league as far as record. I think Chris Paul is more alive than Embiid. And obviously Jokic.
And I'm going to include one more name that I am shocked no one has mentioned. And I feel like for the last 5 years, people have had the analysis of this guy wrong. When the whole world was the highest on him, I was pumping the brakes, and now nobody ever says a word about him, and he at least should be discussed. Kawhi.
Oh, here it goes.
Kawhi does not have a lot of 40-point games. He does not have these, but he's a metronome. It's every night. What's he going to do? He's going to give you 25 points. He's going to give you 7 rebounds. He's going to give you 4 assists, and the Clippers right now are the 3 seed. And so, if it's a top 3 seed, if it's availability, if it's best player on the team, Kawhi has to at least be included in the discussion, especially when, he is not a guy who has missed time this year. Now, he has load managed to a degree, but nothing like last year, and he hasn't had a significant injury. So Kawhi at least has to be included in our discussion of the award, Broussard.
He won't win it, but he could be in the top 5. There's no doubt. There's 5 place getters. He could be in that top 5, but I don't think he can win it.
All right. Well, as far as Embiid goes, that Sixers-Nets game is